customer development, onboarding, and support. So you all, as you have questions about the software, as you start to do this ecosystem mapping within the tool, will be working with me. And I'm happy to provide support and information about the tool. So I'm really excited. This is an awesome project, and one that we're excited to see the results of as a demonstration of how Kumu can support collaboration and mapping of a bunch of stakeholders in an ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So happy to be here today.
Well, thank you, Will, and we're excited to have you here, and also for the great work that you're doing with Kumu to make this possible. My name is Amy Schultz, and I am representing NACCE, the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship. NACCE was an inspiration for the ecosystems mapping piece of the CCC Maker project, because we've done similar work in Appalachia with our Appalachian Regional Commission grant work. And that Appalachian Regional Commission is a federal agency, and we were tapped to help out with entrepreneurial transitions as communities are moving from coal-based economies to other types of economies, depending on that economy. And so I'll go into a little more detail with that. In addition to NACCE, I actually have roots in California. Before NACCE, I was with Feather River College. I was the SB 1070 or K-14 Pathways Director. I'm also co-creator of New World of Work, if anyone has heard of New World of Work in California. And so I'm excited to be back in California working on this project, and it's just really exciting to see. And a little bit about today. So we are recording the webinar, and so it will be available later. If you have questions, feel free to use the question and answer feature, and we'll try to answer questions as we go. We'd like to share a little bit more about NACCE. So it's the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship. We have about 300 community college members. So those are organizational members. So a community college, those would be 300 colleges plus, and it serves as an umbrella for up to 11 members per college. So we have a couple of thousand individual members within our network. The organization is really best known for our best practice sharing in entrepreneurship education. So that's what happens in the classroom and on campus. But then also we do a lot of work in economic development and the role of community colleges in the entrepreneurial ecosystems within the local communities. So community colleges have a lot of assets and knowledge and wisdom to add to economic and workforce development. And so NACCE really helps to encourage colleges in their roles in that. And we also have a strong interest in entrepreneurial leadership, starting from the top with our Presidents for Entrepreneurship Pledge, and presidents that are real entrepreneurial in their thinking. And as we know, the roles of college presidents have shifted in the last couple of decades. Budgets are not a guarantee anymore, and colleges need to be very entrepreneurial in how they use their resources and best serve their students and their communities. A little bit about the Appalachian Regional Commission and the project that NACCE has been working on since 2013. So NACCE has been awarded actually a series of grants from the ARC, or the Appalachian Regional Commission, and that is a federal agency that is really doing a lot of work in economic and community development throughout Appalachia. So that's a region that's really been strong in coal production and has recently had to shift gears in their economic resources. And so what the ARC was interested in is how community colleges can work within a local community to really identify what the opportunities are, where their resources are, and how they can actually start entrepreneurial efforts within the community, working with local partners like economic development corporations, individual entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, nonprofits. There's a lot of ways that organizations can be involved in entrepreneurial ecosystems. So in our project, we worked with 11 colleges in throughout Appalachia, including in Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. And in our project, the first thing that we did is really work with the colleges to identify their local entrepreneurial ecosystem. So if they have a student that's interested in entrepreneurship and the college doesn't provide a service, then maybe someone else does. Maybe the SBDC can do that, or the EDC. So that's at a very basic level. But as we started the mapping, the ecosystems can be very diverse. Like, what role can an art commission play in an entrepreneurial ecosystem? And how are your K-12 partners involved? So once you start the process, you start to identify potential partners that you might not have recognized before. In 1996, the Aspen Institute really looked at the best practices of entrepreneurial economies, and I just really appreciate this research in this quote. So this is from Developing Entrepreneurial Economies in Rural Regions, Lessons from Kentucky and Appalachia. In it, they identify the core challenge of culture change as creating an entrepreneurial culture in which people are encouraged to seek opportunity and embrace creative approaches to exploring it, i.e. to say, I can see things that don't exist, make them exist. So this is really looking at entrepreneurship in rural communities, but these concepts can definitely be applied to innovation and building a culture of innovation really in any community, whether it's rural or inner city or suburban. So there's a lot of inspiration and opportunities, from this Appalachian project. So here's some questions that we asked in developing the ecosystems in our Appalachian communities with the colleges we worked with. So how can community colleges provide an infrastructure for research, development, and access to capital for small businesses in their communities? How can community colleges encourage communities and economies that tend to resist change, adopt, and embrace an entrepreneurial culture? So this is, this is actually one of our biggest challenges with our NACE members as they're going in to start a new initiative. Culture change is challenging, and especially on a bureaucratic college campus. So really looking at those leverage points within your ecosystem and identifying that. And I'm sure many of you might run into the same type of opportunities in your work in the making an innovation initiative. What models of small business support work best in each community, and where these community colleges are located? So, if you're looking at a creative economy with small art, micro businesses that might be artisans, their level of entrepreneurial support might be different than someone who's doing a growth business or in manufacturing. So really looking at what's going on within your own ecosystem and what are the needs of support that are going to best serve your unique ecosystem. How can all the above activities be sustained at the local level? So this is really kind of looking at a grassroots effort, like what can you do within your own community with existing resources? So I wanted to share a couple of really inspiring examples from our colleges in the ARC project. The first one is Northeast State Community College. This is located in northeastern Tennessee, and in the tri-county areas, Johnson City, Kingsport, if anyone's familiar with Tennessee. I know Will is. So, but one of their big outcomes from this project was they were able to fund and build an emerging technologies complex. So they used their ecosystem map to identify partners and mentors and subject matter experts and resources. And what they did is they realized they had a strong manufacturing heritage its history. So Eastman was located in Kingsport. There was a lot of manufacturing going on there, but it was shifting. And so they realized that to stay current with the new technologies, that they really needed to be able to train community college students and the workforce on these new skills. And so they brought this challenge to the community, and were able to identify partners to come forward and assist in being a part of this movement. People were excited about it, and they were awarded an $843,000 grant, a statewide competitive grant, to actually build this emerging technologies complex. I had the opportunity to visit Northeast State about a year and a half ago, and it is phenomenal. It's very rural, and then you go and there's just the highest tech you can think of, and students are very engaged. They do a lot of work, all ages of students, so a lot of work with their own students, with returning students, very involved in K-12 as well. So it's definitely a community-wide effort. Eastern West Virginia Community Community and Technical College. So this is one of my favorites as well. Joe Kapp is the gentleman there next to the 3D printer. He is their entrepreneur in residence. Interesting guy. And so this is an inspiring story to look for these type of people within your ecosystem. Really think of individuals in addition to organizations. Joe is a young retired entrepreneur. He was a serial entrepreneur and retired, I think, at 40, very young, and was living in Washington, D.C. And he and his partner wanted to, live someplace more rural, and so they moved 2 hours west to Eastern West Virginia. It's Wardensville is the name of the community. And he met the president of the college, and they connected, and before you know it, and this was just the entrepreneurial spirit, like he had plenty of financial resources. He wasn't worried about that, but he's just a born entrepreneur, and he wanted to create things. So, within just a couple of years, he really helped to transform the main street of this community. One of the things they did was a new biz launch pad. And it is located on Main Street. It's a part incubator, part makerspace, part Main Street revitalization. They have retail space, but they also do a lot of classes, really find ways to engage people in the community in making and entrepreneurship. They were recently awarded a $250,000 grant from the Economic Development Agency, a federal agency, for their accelerator. And that is actually pretty rare that community colleges get those type of grant awards. So there's some real lessons to be learned. And actually, this is good for all of us. Joe actually was recently appointed to the White House's National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And so he is actually advising the White House, and it's a 2-year appointment, so he'll be there with the new administration, but he's really serving as an advocate for community colleges and what we're able to do as far as economic development. Patrick Henry Community College, this is in Martinsville, Virginia. This was a furniture making community originally, so they had a lot of roots in manufacturing. And, as we know, a lot of the manufacturing has shifted locations. And so this community was left with a transition, and they needed to figure it out. Their president happens to be an entrepreneur herself. And so she, started her career as an entrepreneur, has been an entrepreneur throughout her career, found her way into higher ed, and then found her way as the president of Patrick Henry Community College. Her name's Dr. Angeline Godwin. She's phenomenal. She came in with that entrepreneurial mindset and really looked for ways to transform the community. What I really like about this paragraph is it really illustrates what it means to work within your ecosystem, to identify your partners and then figure out ways to work with them. So I'll go ahead and read it. The EDC has partnered with Patrick Henry Community College and NCI from day one to establish and fund the Fab Lab, and we are excited to see it evolve at a higher level, said Mark Heath, President and CEO of the EDC. We view the Fab Lab as a critical component of small business development by providing the link between ideas and prototyping to actual industrial production. The EDC will expand its partnership with Patrick Henry Community College and NCI and its initiative by allocating additional staff and financial resources through our small minority and entrepreneurial division under the direction of Valerie Harper. And there's a link to that article that came from. So if you look at all the partnerships within that, and then how excited the EDC is to host a Fab Lab, and then, you know, to have younger people in there and youth, and I think that says a lot about, you know, the power of the community college within the ecosystem. And then I'd like to just share a little bit, and probably many of you were on yesterday's webinar about CCC Maker. What we're going to look at today, and Will's going to give us a tour of Kumu and how that can be applied for our ecosystem development. But what we're really looking for are the ecosystems within your CCC Maker project. So the first one is the innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems. And so that's something like we have some examples of that. Actually, all three of those are great examples of that. And it's when we're talking about making, like, entrepreneurship is closely tied to that. So, you know, you can be looking at your entrepreneurial ecosystem, kind of the traditional SPDC and EDCs, but then maybe look at the innovation part. Like maybe within your manufacturing partners, there's opportunities for innovation. So we're looking for entrepreneurial organizations or individuals that can provide some sort of entrepreneurial support, innovation services, subject matter experts, mentors. So don't forget your individuals. If you're able to find an entrepreneur in residence, and Joe actually worked for free for a while, so you never know what you can find, but be creative about that. The other ecosystem, and this is critical in this grant, and Deborah, feel free to jump in at any time, is your workforce development part. And that's with the internships and really working with your employers and what their needs are. So Deborah, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I think that the main thing about the ecosystem mapping is that you start to see the relationships, and sometimes the absence of connections. And so I think as we move into this process, there's always going to be your initial take on potential workforce partners, but what we'll be doing throughout this process is spreading a wider net and seeing if we can find connections that you hadn't anticipated before, or that one of your known connections may lead to another, to another link. So yeah, the main thing is that we're really encouraging people to think broadly about the ecosystem. And I think one of the issues with community colleges traditionally is that they tend to be more introspective, and it's hard to gain those connections in the external ecosystem. But obviously that's an essential part of this project. So that's where I think this is going to be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we have some great examples already of colleges that are doing it, and probably many colleges that are involved in this project are already doing it. That's probably part of what has drawn you to this sort of work, because it's definitely non-linear in the college world anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be, over the course of the next couple of months, we'll really be looking at your innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems, kind of the economic development piece, but then your workforce development, and how do you engage employers, and your intern placements was a huge part of this project. And then your own internal college ecosystem. We're going to spend some time on that because there's so many partners within your own college that maybe you haven't considered, or it just hasn't come up where you have seen the connections, and this will help out. I'm going to quickly go over some guiding questions for your map, but I think it's going to become clear when Will goes over the tour, and I don't want to take up too much of his time. So as you're starting to think about your own maps and who to include, and it's really kind of brainstorming where you want to include as many people, as organizations that you think is a tie or could be a tie, and then you can start to eliminate things later. But some questions to ask: what is the region for your workforce and economic development players who are already working together? So think about, like, what are your system boundaries right now? Identify some previous successful collaborative projects. And then of those, who were the players in the project? So who plays well together? And start listing potential project partners who have expressed interest in making innovation, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. And with that, I'm going to turn the screen over to Will.
Alrighty.
Can you get on that? Let's see.
Did I just steal it?
Okay, there we go.
Tried to steal it.
You got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Will. And so Amy and I will follow up with my email information, but just know that we're going to try to run through like a quick overview, and some of it might, we can always dive in together. I'm happy to like hop on a call at a later time with some of you to run through some of these same sorts of things. So you can always reach me at support@kumu.io. That's a really easy way to get there if you need help in creating your map. What we've done, though, is we've tried to create a basic template for your organization as a way to just get everyone jump-started. So what I want to do is first start with a demonstration of another map that's it's an ecosystem of a symposium, and just give a little bit of a sense of some of the functionality we have to work with here. So this is a project that's just showing the different nodes. These different nodes, as we call them elements in Kumu, are the different individuals that are a part of this collective impact symposium. I think this was in Colorado. And so each of these nodes has information in the sidebar. And so if you can make the jump for this project, oftentimes these elements or these nodes will be representative of organizations that you might be working with, or that might be in this entrepreneurial ecosystem for as related to your college. So there can be a description of the organization, a photograph that could be their logo, and then I need to switch over into what you all would see on the front end. But this is information about these people. So geographic focus, some of their impact areas, what sector they're in, and all of this is entirely customizable. You can add whatever it is that you feel like represents your particular ecosystem as a part of this map. And so what we've done here as well is Kumu has a functionality called clustering, which I'll demonstrate again in our template map here in a second, but that's what these buttons at the top represent. Ways to cluster by what appears in this sidebar as particular areas that these people are involved with. So project and geography and what organization they're a part of are things that we can cluster by. And so once you hit one of these buttons, the map is going to reorganize itself based on these clusters. So now we can see which individuals are a part of both the Early Childhood Colorado Partnership and the Essentials for Childhood project. So this is a functionality called clustering that we'll be working with a lot in this project itself. You can also, if we were to undo that cluster and then do one of the others, now we can start to see where some of these individuals are. Statewide, this one is the Front Range. Then there's a little bit less of a metropolitan Denver area, and Denver itself have a bit fewer individuals. So that's just two ways, but one of the way I think about Kumu is that It's useful for telling a story, doing an analysis on a network, and then crafting presentations to further specify that story. So just this front end view is kind of the basic storytelling, where we can add information over here in the sidebar that gives instructions for how to use our particular map, different information that we want people to see. And then when we click on one of the elements, then there is, a description and some of the areas that they're involved with that we can define based on our particular project. So that's just one example of an ecosystem map that's been done using Kumu. Another one that I'll just demonstrate real briefly. This is the sustainability ecosystem that's a part of the Emory University Graduate Sustainability Group. And so this ecosystem map just shows the different organizations that are a part of the university's sustainability ecosystem. So we can start to see, how things interrelate. So the Office of Sustainability Initiatives are related to these different other organizations through this individual, and this individual is also connected to these different groups. So we can start to see how different elements of the network are particularly connected, and that's just another way, as an extension of the original map that I showed you, what we can do with Kumu. The large elements here are groups and initiatives, and the small bubbles are some of their students, staff, and faculty leaders. And again, if we click on the node, we can find a description, we can find a website. And this map shows just another Kumu functionality called tags. And so when I click on an element, I can see all of the organizations that are impacting the environment, or all of the committees, or all of the groups that are associated, all the groups, and in this case, individuals that are associated with Emory University. And so we'll talk a little bit more about tags in a second, but that's just two examples of some of the functionality that we have to work with. So now I'm going to, let me just stop there and check in. I can't, with the screen share, I can't see the chat anymore. But just wondering if anybody has any questions before I move on from what I've shown so far. And Amy, if there's something that you want to highlight, or Deborah, please go ahead and jump in.
I think, one thing just to keep in mind, because this might be a little overwhelming if this is your first time looking at a Kumu map, is that we are really taking this as an emergent process. And so we understand that every community will have their own unique needs. But just to put everyone at ease, you're not going to have to create this from scratch. So we are, and Will's going to jump in here real soon with the template, but we have started with a basic template, but we're looking for your feedback and input. So you might be doing things in your own community that don't show up with our template, then we would love to see that so that we could add that to that. And then that might inspire someone else from another college. So this really is a collaborative project. And we welcome your question. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, just the offer of support that we offer to all Kumu users, and that's something that we can that you all can reach out. You all can reach out to me directly. So what I was going to do now is to switch over to the first thing I'll need everyone to do is and I think Amy maybe has already sent out the link, but we'll need you to go ahead and create a Kumu account and then send your username that you create over to Amy, and she will add you to our organization. So every time you log into Kumu, yours will be a lot less overwhelming. I work on a lot of projects, and so there's a lot happening in mine. But you'll see in this dashboard that you have the ability to get help, explore other Kumu projects, go to the Kumu homepage for more information, and go to the docs, which are the full package of informational resources and tutorials for using Kumu. So this is the dashboard where we can view all of our Kumu projects. And each of the things that I just showed you, the two demonstration maps I showed you, are a project. And so we organize into projects and organizations. And if you create a project through your personal account, it will show up underneath your projects tab. And the projects that you're a part of related to organizations will show up here as well. But you can also be a part of various organizations. And so again, mine can be a bit overwhelming, but this CCC Maker is our collaborative organization that all of the community colleges will be a part of. And so when we go into this, when you can click the settings and you can create your own project within the CCC Maker organization. And so that's what we want to do, is each of the community colleges will make their ecosystem map as a part of this organization. And so if you click on one of these projects, we can now open it. And so this is the template map that we've started working on just as a first pass at creating an easy way for people to come in to start to do this mapping work. And so this is designed to be basic as just a way to start to show what we're thinking about as like guidance for all of you as you start to think about your the way that you might do this ecosystem mapping project. And so this is a very basic design with very basic colors and decorations, largely just to get everybody thinking about some of the initial functionality that we might be able to use. So this button here is a way to move the sidebar over to the side so that now I can kind of use the full visual real estate of my screen. Just looking at the question from Zach, yeah, Zach, if you could just drop your usernames to Amy and I, we'll both be able to add them. So send the username that you create from an account via email to Amy, and will then get you added to the organization, and you'll be notified with an email that you're then added to that organization. So anyway, so all of these are elements, as I've said, and each of these elements represents an organization. So I've created an element for Kumu. Right now, we've just given all of the organizations kind of a dummy, just org 7. And this is just, up here we can have the description of the organization. Up here you see, this is what we call the element type. So for this project, we've got, an individual, a government organization, a for-profit, a nonprofit, and an education organization. And so this is the one kind of representing Kumu, just in terms of, think of it, this is just an example, but these are called different fields. And some of the functionality is that if you enter an image URL, then that image, that Kumu logo, will show up on the node. And so this is just the URL of that image. And so that's something that you can add through a field called image, which will be built into your template. Another thing is that if I click on this node, if I double click on it, it's going to open up that organization's website. So that's a way to build, you can click on a node and jump out to an organization's website from the node itself. Let's see what else. And so then Amy and I have started talking about the various categories that the organizations you're working with might represent, and you can add multiple categories. And this categories field is what, like I showed you on the other Civic Canopy map, a way to cluster by. And so all of these different elements have various categories associated with them. This one is, an individual that does philanthropy and entrepreneurship. This one is a government agency that does workforce development, internships, and business services. So this button at the bottom allows us to cluster by these various categories. So, now we can see that the entrepreneurship category has these organizations related to it. The innovation services, category has these organizations related to it. And so the final piece of functionality I'll demonstrate that will be baked into or built into this template ecosystem map is the ability to filter by those types I mentioned at the top. So click on the labels below to filter by type. Okay, so from this perspective, I just want to look at, the education organizations. And now I'm curious about adding the nonprofits. Now I want to see, okay, which ones are individuals, and let's take off the for-profit. So that's just another way to start to apply different filters for your view, as a way to kind of get into the complexity and understand aspects of your ecosystem. Let me see. One other thing, we will pass out a file. Amy, you wanted to go ahead and show how they can add the import, the template, right? Do we want to do that?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that would be great. So yeah, they can see. And like we said, this is really just the beginning. We need your feedback and input. Those categories were things that we brainstormed, really based on my experience working with the Appalachian colleges and throughout NACE, and then in my own experience at Feather River College. But you might have other types of categories, so that's really the place that we would want to be adding to, and that's where the clustering can get pretty interesting.
And can I just jump in for a second too? I think there will be a lot of individual or local categories, but I'm also hoping that we can standardize some of the categories that will relate specifically to community college, industry sectors, so that we can align it with the community college and with the Chancellor's Office and various other initiatives. So at some point, we may need to combine or rename across everyone's ecosystem, just so that we're seeing the same. Because at a certain point, we're going to want to create an ecosystem map of the entire CCC Maker project. So we will need standardization at some point.
And that I just completely agree with that perspective in terms of the capability that's built into the tool already for social network analysis. And there's some community detection algorithms that are already baked into the tool. A lot of the social network analysis metrics are baked in. I don't want to go into that to overcomplicate things today, but that's something that we can follow up individually about. But that those sorts of metrics can allow you to start to size and decorate your different nodes based on some of that analyses. And that, it provides a lot for the researchers if we all have a standardized process for doing that. So the category list, there's a function down here at the bottom called table. And this table view, shows the project data, that we have, that this is the format of data that we can show. And I just am going to show you the categories that we currently have. So over here, I can, decide which things I want to show. And so these are the categories that we have. And if you click, in this spot, this shows you the full list of categories that we have added as a brainstorm starting point for this project. So this is just the table function that can allow you to edit the data and add further information within the Kumu application itself. And that's, again, something that I can help later with if that's helpful. So at this time, unless there are any questions at the moment, I'll show you how to import the template that you'll receive from Amy into your own project. So if anybody's got any questions, I think you can use the chat function or the Q&A function to ask them. I just want to give that opportunity before we move on. In the meantime, Amy, do you have anything to add before we show the template?
John Gralty from Cabrillo just asked, he's new to Kumu, or just started a new Kumu project. Is there something we should be doing ourselves? Anything we should do to connect with CCC Maker Movement Project? Okay, so actually, John, that's exactly what we're going to get into right now. It's a good question.
Yep, and it might make things a bit complicated if people there'll be personal projects and projects created through the organization. And once you give your username to Amy, it will make it much easier to create those projects through the organization to keep them all organized and in the same place. So to get the import, there's a function here in this more menu that's like export a .json file, which is what we call the project blueprint. And that's what Amy will send everyone. But so I am going to, in my dashboard, or actually here in the settings, I created a JSON template import demo project that has nothing in it right now. And so I'm going to open that up and then show you how you can import the template into your project. So when you create a new project, this is a way to pick the template. We're using the stakeholder template at this time, but there's an option down here to import a JSON blueprint. And so it'll take me a second to import the file. I'm not sure if that will show up in the screen share, so you can see that by importing that template, I selected the file, and then I just clicked the big green button that said import template. And now I have exactly what you were seeing in the other project added as a starter map within my project. So that's a very easy way for you all to get these different categories added as a button for your users to filter, and the ability to cluster by category, and the full basic database that we have outlined that can use some of that functionality in Kumu. So I can go over that again, but basically what we did is I created a new project, and then when I got to the screen that asked me what template I wanted to use, I said import the JSON blueprint, and I selected the file and clicked the big green button, and then it loaded this project. So I'm happy to follow up with any of you individually if you have trouble with that. But I hope that will be a simple way to get everybody moving and started using Kumu quickly. So that's what that's kind of the basics of what I had outlined. And I think, Amy, you had kind of had a conclusion, and then maybe some time given for a Q&A.
I think, well, if you don't mind going back to the table, just to clarify for people. So what you'll be receiving is an Excel file that you can populate yourself and then import it. So this is a sample one that we co-created just to get started. So it's really up to you, how those guiding questions that we had at the beginning. If you want to do like a facilitated workshop and bring some stakeholders together, that might be a good way to get started. If you want to just pull your making team together and just start brainstorming among yourselves, like who your partners are. But really, it's going to be about populating your own spreadsheet, and then you can import that in, and it will make this magical map. The other thing I wanted to add is, as far as in reference to the Appalachian project, when we did those ecosystems, that was in 2014, and that was before we knew about Kumu. We were using a different software, and it was much more linear, and so you really just got like a two-dimensional linear map. Kumu has this, with the clustering components, and then there's a lot we can do with social network analysis later on. There's a lot of potential with that, so that's why we went with that. And this is actually our first time using Kumu for community college ecosystem maps. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background about that. Will, is there anything you want to add about the template that they're receiving, or how they should go about starting that?
Well, so I think probably, Amy, what makes the most sense is I can just create a detailed document that we could send out as a PDF or a Word file or something like that. Could even create it as a Google document that just gives a detailed instruction with screenshots for exactly the steps that people need to follow. That seems,
that's fantastic.
Don't I mean, that way we don't create any confusion. On webinars are tough when we can't talk to everybody immediately and sometimes, and so want to make sure that you have the exact steps that you need. Is that okay with you, Amy, if we go that route?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. And if there are a bunch of people that have questions, like I said, we can have another webinar or just a live session where we're all chatting and asking questions. I will say that as new Kumu users, docs.kumu.io is this is the a full tutorial documentation of pretty much everything you can do with Kumu, and there is a 5-minute quick start video that will give you a good overview of the tool. My email address down here, support@kumu.io will reach me, and then over here, this first steps guide, we'll walk you through creating an account, creating a project, picking a template, building a map. These are sort of the general instructions for all Kumu users, and there's a lot of information here about the features included with Kumu that would be probably good for the people that have time to just get that overview so that what possibilities there are and can push the rest of us to develop the projects that way. So I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that as one way to get an overview of the interface and the application itself. This is the place to continuously go back to for any questions that you need, and when the event arises that you don't find something that you're looking for here, reach out to me and I can help you walk you through it. But I just wanted to make sure we highlighted that.
That's great. Okay, so that's great. So I'm sure people are wondering about next steps. So the next steps are, one, to register to start an account with Kumu. It's free. So you just need to have someone from your team go and start an account. And actually, you can have multiple people from your team, but if you want to just start with one, send me one username, and that is, my email address is schulz@NACCE, that's NACCE.com. I have it in the chat box as well. And then in the confirmation emails, you should have received that as well. So once you create your account, send me your username, and then we will add you to the CCC Maker project. We'll also send you the template with the instructions that Will has generously agreed to do. And then once you have that, you can jump in and start your map. So use those guiding questions. I'm also available for conference calls. So if you need assistance with the map itself or how to start, identifying stakeholders in your ecosystem, I'm happy to schedule a call. So again, my email is schulz@nacc.com. And then also we'll have this recording available if you want to rewatch it or if you want to share this with someone else on your team. And then I can also share the PowerPoint separately if you want that just as its own document. So Karen from Sierra will work with you to get that on the website. So also, our next webinar is going to be January 12th at 2 p.m. and that is going to be about looking at your own internal college ecosystem and how to start mapping that. So hopefully you'll have, and we're not expecting you to have your full map done, but really this is just a way to start playing and getting your feet wet. So a little experiment in map making. So Deborah, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, I just wanted to say too, we will be sending out very early in the new year a self-study guide for some data and other elements, some of which will overlap with the ecosystem mapping and other which is really just a data gathering exercise so we can get a baseline. So it's my intention that the self-study data type questions will be closely related to the ecosystem mapping and they will inform each other and will help drive your thinking forward about how you need to plan for your either the development or the expansion of your makerspace. So I want to thank you guys too. This is really exciting to me, because making these kinds of connections visible is a huge part of our work, because otherwise a lot of this just remains sort of intangible. So this way we really see how you're connecting with your community, and that's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I'll send a follow-up email with this information and the PowerPoint, and then the upcoming webinar, so you have that. And then we'll also have it on the CCC Maker website shortly, probably. I know we're approaching the holidays, so we'll see, but by January, I'm sure. So, and with that, I just would like to thank Will and Deborah for taking the time today. And yeah, this is a very exciting project, and we're really honored to be a part of this. And we look forward to seeing you all in the new year. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.
Right. Bye.
Hey, great. Hey, Will, this is really amazing.
Awesome.